with Thunder.
And I'm here with Sydney, and this is BS Astrology.
What's up, y'all? We are going to be doing episode 23, June 17th through the 23rd. So, yay. We are filming this on June 16th, Monday, as Mars is anoretic and steamy, figuring out what he's going to do. And
we also just came off the perfection of the Mars-Uranus square yesterday.
And Jupiter-Saturn square.
Yep. So we are coping with that in real time as we film this.
I'm interested because there's been so much violence over the weekend, right?
Right.
But kind of in this like weird kind of concentrated way.
Yeah.
Not massed. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. There are wars starting.
There are wars starting, but in terms of, so obviously we're usually coming at this from like an American-centric viewpoint. And yeah, it was like weird concentrated. I would say it was actually like really successful for the most part. Like mass protests happened over the weekend with little concentrated points of violence. And also just like profound humiliation for Donald Trump, I think.
Which I definitely think was the sun square the nodes.
Yeah.
For me, like that was what that seemed to be to a certain extent. And also Mars doing kind of its worst for him.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
That's that day chart stuff.
Yeah, he can't cope with that.
But
so,
we did
sad little Gemini moment.
We did have some Congress people get harmed in Minnesota. A congresswoman and her husband, and then also a congressman and his wife. But I think they ended up living. But
the congresswoman died.
Yeah, with her husband, which is just
horrible.
Yeah. So we did see some sort of violence happen. Obviously, we know what's going on overseas right now with Israel attacking Iran.
Yep.
Which is a lot.
Yeah. Of course, the U.S. is now having a lot of fun talking about us sending troops into Iran.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. It really feels like there's no clarity on like who's winning right now as far as like the good guys versus the bad guys.
I'm pretty sure that that's Neptune.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no clarity right now.
Yeah.
And we're too early in the Neptune Aries story.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I also want to note that when I think it was the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction that happened in Aquarius a few years ago, we had information about voter stuff, right? Like whether the election was real, whether it was, falsified. It was during the time where Trump was saying that Biden had stolen the election, and then it came back that no, that did not happen. Right. But now we're at the square, and we're seeing a lot of stuff around election fraud.
Yeah,
and so
they're really trying to put a case together right now.
Yeah, and I think that's very likely that they will, and kind of being able to say, okay, well, here we have something around structures and legalities. There's a cycle happening there we have the square, the realization that something's up. And then we'll have the opposition, years from now, which will be very interesting. But like in my brain, I'm trying to kind of like, okay, this has to do with election stuff. This has to do with laws. This has to do with lawyers. This has to do with how we tally things and how we are like setting up our actual like fundamental structures to our
and like our checks and balances, right? Like making sure like not just creating the systems, but also like how do we make sure those systems are functioning the way that they're supposed to.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's just pretty interesting.
There's a lot going on right now.
There is. Uranus is anoretic. Yeah. The Ingress will be Ingress. The Ingress will happen going into Gemini on July 7th.
And then
historically, just as a little note as we go forward, because we're watching what's happening right now as Uranus is anoretic, we've seen these like, I would say like war. War. Hey, are we going to war? And historically, whenever Uranus has gone into Gemini, we have had a war of some sort sprout. how big that is.
Yeah. Well, and I think also with like Neptune and Aries and all of that, it could also be like the cycle's going to come back, but it's going to be more convoluted than it has in the past. And I think international conflict is more convoluted than it has been in the past.
Yeah, I think the confusion factor, like the clarity of like where it comes from, that makes sense because Uranus will be immediately sextiling Saturn and Neptune, which are still very close to their conjunction. So there's chaos afoot. And also Uranus finishing up its cycle in Taurus, which had to do with like resourcing and land and like the literal earth. It'd be, we do know that there was just an earthquake. That was a whole thing that just happened as well. So as we go into Gemini, I can't wait to talk about Uranus and Gemini because I really think everything having to do with technology is just going to crack wide open.
Oh yeah, I think AI is going to be a huge part of Uranus and Gemini.
Yeah, not great.
But it's also, it's fun to look back on Uranus and Taurus. It's been there since like 2017, I believe, 2018. So whatever your life has been like since then, think about how Uranus and Taurus has been playing that role.
Yeah, by whole sign, it will have been in one part of your chart for the last 7.5 years, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So like for me, it's been in my ninth house of astrology. And when did it go in? So like 9 years ago. How long ago? What's math? 2017?
Yeah, I think it was 2017,
18. Yeah, so I was definitely getting far more obsessed with it. I was already like looking at stuff, but I was definitely starting to ask way more questions than like just me searching into the ether. Like I definitely was starting I need a formal education or I need a better structure around this. And so it just kind of came and blew apart my ninth house, which was really great for me. But I also really love Uranus. So.
Yeah, it went through my second house. So I definitely experienced a lot of like windfalls of money, and then it would just as quickly go away. Like it was just like this huge expansion, and then it would be this like mass depletion. And I think it was all just kind of this question of how my self-esteem directly interacts with
suddenly in, suddenly out,
and definitely my self-esteem and just like, my value system definitely has changed a lot since 2017 and kind of broke down everything that I thought. I've made the joke since 2017 that every time I say like, this is definitely how I feel, or I would never do this, Uranus is like, I'm going to challenge that. So yeah. But anyway, it'll be fun when it moves into my third house and your 10th house.
Yeah, by whole sign.
Yeah.
It'll take a while for it to hit my midheaven, but that'll be, we'll see. We'll see
if that'll be good for you, though.
Well, I'm hoping that this astrology thing is like actually one of the things that, helps me sustain my life. But also there's some other options that are kind of floating around. But let's get into the astrology.
Wait, did you mention the fingers of God?
There's going to be 2 fingers of God involving Mars and Pluto, both at the apexes of these fingers of God, forming all week. So I think that there's some really like critical and crucial information and events that will occur that have to do with martial things, which is often war.
Yeah. And it's karmic, right? It's
it just like it pushes all of the energy up into those planets. And so the more, I guess, the traditional yod. I mean, yods aren't like a traditional aspect, so I think that's really interesting. But a yod is typically looked at as 2 slower moving planets forming a sextile, shooting quincunxes, aversions, up to a faster moving planet. That is the traditional, what is it called? Interpretation of what a yod is. It looks like a pizza slice. But some astrologers argue that a yod can be formed with different weighted planets actually at the base. So the one involving Pluto at the apex would be probably the most questionable one, where Mars is a very standard traditional.
Distinct. Yeah, that's distinct.
Yeah, so I think Mars is certainly a little bit more important, though I think Pluto is a part of the party too.
And there's just so many frustrating aspects that Mars is making this week. I just think it's going to be a very martial week.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Tuesday, June 17th.
That's Mars's day.
It's Mars's day. So we are hopping right into Mars's day. And at 12:15 a.m., we are starting with Sun in Gemini, making a sextile to Chiron in Aries at 26 degrees. So again, this is going to be right as the day is starting, 12:15 a.m. We're also going to be sleeping. But this is definitely just like a gentle little ego nudge. Yeah, like a healing ego nudge. And that's kind of how we're getting started. But I think the bigger thing to start with, because we just started talking about how martial this week's going to be, at 1:35 a.m., Mars is ingress into Virgo. Yeah. So it's leaving Leo and going into Virgo.
So we love that it's leaving Leo, because now we know that it's outside of the sign that it was doing all of its retrograde action in. Like, finally, we're into kind of new territory, which
safer territory.
Thank goodness. However, Mars in Virgo is going to be ruled by that Mercury in Cancer. So now we have a little bit more of an emotional kind of victim-y.
Yeah. Especially anytime Mars and Cancer are doing a dance, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. But Mars in Virgo is it's the planet in the sign of the worker and of the serviceman. It wants to get some done. It wants to do it right.
Yeah.
And it's more apt to, I think, to really get stuff done than it would in Mars and Leo.
Oh, definitely. Mars and Leo is lazy. Mars and Leo wants recognition without putting the work in. Sorry.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
This coming from a Virgo stallion, though. So Mars enters. So Mars and Virgo, it's very work oriented. It's definitely great for if you have tasks that you need to get done. I think with Virgo, particularly if it's tasks that you are sort of beholden to other people or organizations or whatever it is that you feel beholden to, it's definitely going to be more work-oriented things around that.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's definitely, and that's the thing, is that Mars tends to be a little bit more of a selfish planet. Virgo's not like that, so it is kind of interesting. It's going to be kind of turning that drive outward. So
yeah, I do think that there's a lot of sensitivity happening if we just go down the dispositor line, right? It's Mars and Virgo. That's just a tummy ache in general, ruled by the Mercury in Cancer. Here's your heart kind of aches. You're feeling kind of sensitive. And then you go to the moon, which the moon is in Pisces, which is like the ultimate sad boy. So there could also be like some almost like delusions around all of the work that you want to get done, because this has to do with service and sacrifice.
Right.
So I think that that's kind of the story that it's telling initially. And as soon as Mars goes into Virgo, we immediately have some quincunxes forming between Saturn and Neptune. So Mars is having to make some adjustments around how it does the things it does in order to do, whatever Saturn and Aries is trying to do, which is like setting up brand new structures that like maybe not super great.
Yeah. Which also just adds to it, because like, what the fuck is Saturn and Aries trying to do?
Yeah, with also like a sense of almost like confusion or illusion around the sorts of work it can get done because of that aspect to Neptune that's forming. And because Mars is, he's not super fast, but he's not slow. This is gonna be happening all week. This quincunx anxiety around what you're trying to get done.
Yeah, and I was just like, this is a good week to try to find comfort in trying on a few different hats, trying out what works, and being okay with setbacks.
Yeah,
because it's not going to be clear. At least not this week. I don't think that it's like the goals that we're setting are not going to be super clear through the whole week.
Yeah, I dig that. I dig that analysis of it. Like, it's almost like try to put down the things that you need to get done down onto paper, but also be really practical and pragmatic about the fact that things are going to need to change, and just being willing to kind of go with that. I mean, it's mutability and cardinality. So it's like really like go with the flow and then make the action where you can make the action.
Yeah. Just trust that you will be able to get those things done.
Yeah.
Just maybe not this week. So that's where we're starting with Tuesday. We have some semi-squares happening in the morning, but our next major aspect happens at 8:01 a.m. Moon in Pisces will, oh, this is cute. Moon in Pisces sexiling Venus and Taurus.
Yeah, that's a nice like working energy.
Yeah.
Like a nice little intuitive, creative kind of feel good thing. However, I do think because that sun semi-squares Venus right before it, there's something forming, right? There's something around like our values. I keep wondering what that has to do with Uranus, because Uranus is in Taurus.
Yeah.
So
stuck in that last critical degree, really.
I think something is kind of starting to present itself and be shown to us around like what is going on with Venus. It's like the sun is kind of shining part of its light on Venus around value, money, relationships. We're not quite there yet, and we're still in Gemini season, so it has to do with ideas and information around Venusian things. But it nevertheless, like, we have this lovely sextile from the moon to Venus. They're working together, and then it just kind of holds.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Which means that this is actually a nice start to the week.
Yeah, right? It's not terrible.
Not terrible, because then at 5:08 p.m., Moon will trine Mercury in Cancer. So Pisces and Cancer, it's really easy for them to talk to each other, right? This is going to come from a very emotional, intuitive point. Again, like you said, because we've got that Mars in Virgo, right? Having that conversation with Mercury in Cancer. I do think it's going to be sensitive. I think it's going to be tender, but I think this is going to be the opportunity to be able to hold those feelings.
And also to communicate.
Yeah.
Like, and to communicate all of the ways that we're feeling and sensing and like processing intuitively processing various pieces of information. So it's actually really quite lovely.
Yeah.
All things considered. And we get a really cute quintile to Uranus, which I think just allows us to feel slightly in a different way that kind of pushes us into a better space. So it's like intuitively connecting in some sort of way.
Yeah.
We do get a semi-square to Pluto, which allows us to go kind of deep. But we're already in the depths.
We already in the Pisces. Depths. Yeah. I think the semi-square is kind of just like acknowledging the depths.
Or maybe like acknowledging, or like when like Pluto allows us to eliminate. So maybe there's something where like something comes up and then we go, okay, but like we now have an awareness of what we need to really like let go of in that moment.
Yeah. And I think that's like the nice thing about Tuesday. This is a good start to the week, because I think the overall vibe is you're going to be able to have these, intuitive hits and kind of connect emotionally with what some of these goals are that you're trying to set. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to move forward with them. This isn't like the most productive of days, but it is, well, like tangibly productive. But I think emotionally and intuitively, it's a good way. It's a good day to kind of get clear with where your head's at. Wherever your head and your heart are thinking today, you're probably on the right track.
Yeah.
Especially, again, going back to the way that the whole day starts is with that sun sextile Chiron, which I do think is just kind of like this gentle, like, trust yourself. And trust your feelings kind of thing today.
I like that.
Yeah.
So let's move into Wednesday, June 18th.
Yeah.
That is Mercury's day. Mercury is in Cancer. The Sun and Jupiter are in Antisha. So there's something here about like information. And I think information around Jupiterian things like law, and it's the light is being shown on it. It can also be kind of a feel-good aspect, because Sun-Jupiter combinations are really quite lovely.
Yeah, they are. They're nice. They're nice.
So like not sad about that. I was thinking about, how this day is, because we do have at 12:19 p.m. we have the moon in Pisces will square the sun in Gemini. So this is the last quarter square. So it's a crisis of awareness. Like, we know the things that we need to either release, get done with, whatever, going forward, so we can get to that new moon. So things are kind of winding down. It's like sun's going down, big guy.
Yep.
But there is an awareness here of like those things that need to kind of die or go away in a way. And it's in the last degrees of Gemini and Pisces. So I think that's probably, it's either in Saturn or Mars is bound. So which can feel kind of
a little a little Eeyore.
Yeah, the mutable square, regardless, is just you're thinking a lot, you're processing a lot. You can't really quite put your full finger on it.
Ruminating.
Yeah, when it's the sun and the moon, this has to do with like our emotional sense of self, and then also like our soul aren't talking well. No. They're at odds with each other.
You're very much in your head, and not in your spiritual self. Yeah, for sure. Freaking Gemini.
Well, no, I mean, and also Moon in Pisces, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Pisces. Pisces can be so repressed. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is that we talk about the depth of emotion with Pisces, but Pisces can also just be like intense repression.
Just hold it all back.
Yeah, just
put it under the ocean.
Yeah,
escapism.
Take some drugs.
A big thing. Yeah, and Pisces and Gemini, I would think that that's a little bit. One of the things that they share is
for sure
escaping through different methods.
Yeah.
One for Pisces can be like literally trying to absorb itself into another person, thing, drug, experience. Or Sun and or Gemini as an archetype, it will want more pieces of data or information to just kind of like go and float around and flit from place to place in order for it to feel safe and secure.
It almost wants to muddy the waters of what the final answer is because it doesn't want to know the answer. Yeah, like that can be very Gemini.
Yeah. The vision I just got was like a soda stream where it goes
yeah, exactly.
You have no idea, like you like can't see through the bubbles, and they're kind of like weird and sharp and anyways,
we love mutables.
We do
they can never put their finger on anything.
No, they cannot. But before that square, I mean, it's forming all morning. We do have the moon conjunct the North Node in Pisces, and so there's something about like our intuitive guidance system is now pointing us to that North Node in Pisces around release, forgiveness, compassion, intuition, some sort of like connection. It could be the principle of like mothering and nurturing can come to this North Node. It's facilitating this North Node thing.
Which means for you personally, I would think that this would be even just acknowledging, how you were nurtured or what your nurturing nature is and how that's impacting your goals or whatever you're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
And also I think just because that moon sun square doesn't happen until 12/19, I feel like it's like, you're gonna have all these intuitive hits from Tuesday until Wednesday morning, and then something's gonna come in that's gonna make you question yourself, and then that soda stream's gonna come in, and the bubbles.
At 2:34, we do get that moon sextile Uranus and Taurus, so intuitive like hits where you're feeling a little like, okay, I can change this habit or this way of being or feeling, but it's helpful and it feels good and probably a little exciting to be able to make that shift rather than shocking or hard or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. And sextile, nice gentle sextile. We love Uranus with gentle aspects. And then at 4:08 p.m. we have moon going into Aries.
Spicy Aries.
And then like an hour and a half later, it makes a quincunx to Mars. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the moon in Aries is going to be ruled by that Mars in Virgo.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So and there's like there's definitely, it's a tense conversation because it's a quincunx.
Yeah, there's some sort of adjustment, anxiety, some sort of awareness of how you, like, what you need to do, but you don't want to necessarily do it.
Or you don't know how to.
Yeah, probably more that, I think.
Yeah.
And it's, in early degrees. So this is brand new data. And the moon in Aries wants to take action. It needs to take action.
Right.
But it's being told you have to shift what you're doing in order for us to be of service here.
Right.
There could be like a call to maybe release some of the selfishness that a moon in Aries can have in order to do the Mars and Virgo thing, which is literally to be helpful.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's interesting because Aries and Virgo have Antisha.
They do have Antisha.
So I do think that this is a conversation that you can come to a conclusion on, right? And I do think Aries doesn't even think deep enough to have a lot of motivation to be selfish. It's just thinking about what it wants to do next.
Yeah.
Right. And I think Virgo can come in and be like, hey, like, have you considered the other people around you?
Yeah.
And then Aries will be like, oh, oh, I can work with that.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that there's going to be some kind of conversation like that going on where, yeah, you kind of have to step back from what you think is right, or maybe you've just been like going in this one direction.
Yeah.
And Mars is going to give you some reminder that, you know, just because you think it's the right way to go doesn't mean it is the right way to go.
Yeah. We have a gauntlet of moments with the moon. It's going to conjunct Saturn in Aries, which can bring like a sense of, you know, this is my responsibility to get this thing done. It can also, Moon Saturn you can feel a little isolated, alone, or needing to go at it alone.
Yeah.
Which I think with the Aries energy is very much like, okay, this is my cross to bear.
Yeah. Well, especially with the Aries quincunx Virgo, right?
Yeah.
It would feel very like self-sacrificial for Aries to be like, yeah, I guess I won't do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But it can be a little bit of a Debbie Downer. We do have the moon
weird.
square Jupiter in Cancer, which is going to want to force us or implore us to take some sort of action that might be a little bit over the top.
It's a cardinal square.
Yeah, cardinal squares. It could be a little bit of an overreaction maybe to the ways that we've been asked to adjust. You know, this is all in the evening. I do think that if you wanted to use this energy to get shit done in your day, you really can.
Yeah. You
just got to be careful to not, you know, be so convinced that you were right about every action that you took. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Get shit done.
Yeah.
Be humble. I would say get shit done, but be humble.
Yeah. Moon conjunct Neptune in Aries at 7:46 p.m.
Be humble.
Yeah.
You know, be humble.
And there's also like an intuitiveness about it, which is which could be really cool, and like some sort of like the dream made apparent in like some sort of emotional way. Like you're very aware of like how you're connected to like a larger dream or something like that. But
yeah, and like I think just feeling connected to, it was just in my mind, it's like feeling connected to how you yourself contribute to something. I guess it's basically what you were saying, but it's really that sense of like feeling firm and feeling confident in yourself and the choices that you are making.
Could feel a little overconfident with Neptune being the thing that it's touching, but you know,
could be.
This is what I'm gonna do. Yeah. You're like, are you sure about that, Querida? I don't know. 8:16 p.m. This is the big aspect of the day. We have Jupiter square Neptune.
It's a biggie.
Yeah, it's you know, laws, judges, travel, just legalities and general education.
Yeah. I still think, I think that stuff around immigration is still playing, especially with Jupiter in Cancer.
Yeah. Some confusion around certain laws that are coming to light, perhaps.
Yeah, or just confusion about like who it applies to, right? Because we are still seeing these issues where like it's just like really haphazardly being carried out. These immigration laws, like there are people who are legal citizens who are being deported. There are white people being like, it's just like confusing and weird.
Yeah. And I also think these are two planets that are limitless.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're both into expansion in different ways, though Neptune does dissolve and it can like kind of, I always just think of it as like, it makes things hazy. Like there's a fog to it.
Yeah. And there's also like, when you talk about limitlessness and just like that expansion, it can also be that thing where like, if you expand wide enough, you just like fully lose the picture.
Like everything falls apart.
Yeah. And you're just like in this like white haze. It's almost like the birth of the universe, right? Where it's just like this explosion of light and then you just can't see anything but this blinding light, right?
There could be something relatively deceptive about like the dream that is being proposed to us and how it applies to things like immigration and law and education, that we don't have the full story because of that square from Neptune.
Right.
Like it's such a, like these two planets are very much about like the vision and the goal and like the dream, and like kind of the overarching, like how we're all connected to everything, like both God and universe. But there's something confusing here.
Yeah. Now with the squares can be really productive. They can definitely be a way to learn a lesson, find ways to kind of understand where this, like, how this information plays out in the bigger picture. But yeah, I just always think Neptune squares, like, that lesson can be learned, but like you have to tread so carefully to not just totally delude yourself. Yeah.
I think the moon in Aries offers some information here too, because Jupiter in Cancer is ruled by that moon in Aries. Yep. And then Neptune in Aries will eventually go back, Mercury in the Neptune in Aries will go to the Mars in Virgo, which goes to the Mercury in Cancer, which eventually goes back to that moon in Aries.
Yeah. You know what I think? I think it's playing out a really big story about what makes us feel safe, or what we think makes us feel safe.
And also what the people want and how they're willing to take action.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at with like what makes us feel safe is literally this idea of like, there's definitely this narrative trying to be pushed on us right now of it's like it's us versus them, right? It's like you should be scared of immigrants, you should want them out, right? That's kind of like the story they're trying to tell us, and we're all sitting here and there's like talk about like Jupiter square Neptune, this like cognitive dissonance where we're like, oh, but like my neighbors are immigrants and like the people I work with are immigrants, and I can't run my business anymore now that all the immigrants are hiding, right? So something about like what is supposed to make us feel safe, or what we think makes us safe, and like what kind of delusions are we carrying with us that make us think that things would be safe.
And what kind of goals are shifting. I think there could be something coming up at that time.
For sure.
9:56 p.m. we have the moon sextile Pluto, which is going to allow us to get a little bit deeper, allow us to probably get a little bit more psychological,
maybe gain a little bit of clarity from that Neptune square. Won't have it all figured out, but it's definitely going to be a little bit of like a
Pluto's got some intensity to it. Moon and Aries do feel very intensely.
Yeah, they do. You would know.
I would know. I don't have a moon in Aries, but I do have a moon in Aries, babe. But the thing that I will say about moon in Aries, typically, like I think from a really pure archetype, or when it's in a house that would be cardinal or angular, is like you feel things, you let go of things. And maybe there's something here about, especially with the sextile to Pluto and Aquarius, which is like this fixity. It's like, actually, you need to hold on to this feeling, this inspiration, something here.
Yeah.
Like there's something useful here, some useful data. But all that being said, it is a pretty good aspect in terms of having any sort of touching to Pluto. All right. You want to do some Thursdays?
Let's do Thursday. It's going to be Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Happy Juneteenth.
Thanks.
There's a lot of minor aspects on this day. And, we're starting around like 4:30 in the morning. There's a moon by quintile to Mars, which is a nice, creative way.
That's working energy.
Creative working energy. And, especially if you're East Coast, that's going to be around 7:30 in the morning. So that's great energy to wake up with if you're going to work that day. And then it's pretty quiet throughout the day after that until we get to 4:18 in the afternoon. There's a moon semi-sextile to Venus. So we definitely have some like emotional ideas kind of sprouting up. Moon semi-square to Uranus and Taurus, which is a little more uncomfy. But I would say the biggest aspect of the day really doesn't come until 5:08 p.m.
Mars quincunx Saturn.
Which it's gonna suck. At the first degree.
Yeah. So our two malefics, right? Mars is a planet of desire, of drive, of conflict, of war, aggression. Saturn can be a planet of boundaries, limitations, just being limited. Literally the word no.
The responsibilities we are beholden to.
Responsibilities. It can deal with structures. It can deal with literal foundations.
And like commitment.
Yeah.
What we commit to. And those kinds of things.
Yeah, definitely commitments. It can be around just ambition too.
Yeah.
But like when you have a planet, would say, of desire, having a very weird moment with the planet of like goals, it doesn't know how to go forward to get what it needs done. And it feels really anxious about it. and it could create some sort of sudden friction or tension, or even a little bit of violence.
I was going to say there could be an explosion there.
Yeah, especially because it is Saturn in Aries ruled by Mars and Virgo.
Exactly. Yeah. And with the quincunx, it just feels so particularly uncomfortable.
I mean, like, I Mars have the quincunx in my chart with Pluto, but like, you're always just like, I have to get it done, but I don't know exactly everything that needs to get done, or having to constantly make changes to like having to be really flexible with how you get things done at any given time is, I think, the hallmark of a Saturn Mars or Mars Saturn quincunx. You have to be willing to be flexible, or everything feels like shit.
Yeah. And like, you have to be willing to be flexible, but literally the only way Mars can be is Mars is just going to like go for what it thinks it has to do, and Saturn's going to be like, shh. Yeah. And Mars is going to be like, okay, it's like blue balling Mars over and over again, right? And Mars just has to like be okay with like taking the cold shower and taking a step back again. Yeah. And that sucks for Mars. That is just absolutely not how Mars is designed to function. Yeah. Again, we do have these two Antisha signs, right? So there is, I do think there's a productive conversation happening, but it's just not comfortable and pretty confrontational. And yeah, I think it's productive, but Saturn is just going to be constantly kind of setting the tempo for Mars.
There could be something kind of suddenly coming up that has to do with like our resourcing, though, because that Mars is dangerously close to squaring Uranus. Like really it is within 3 degrees. So I think Uranus is something at play, and with it being anaretic, there could be some sort of adjustment that we have to do around our resourcing. I mean, Mars is an earth sign.
Right. You're right. Yeah. And around the work we do, and maybe around the ways in which we like sacrifice ourselves,
and maybe even something around like workers' rights.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Labor laws. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see and maybe check our work. Going back to that.
Really interesting. This is happening on Juneteenth. Also.
Yeah.
Feels.
Everything, we live in very precedented times.
We do. We truly
extremely precedented times.
But it's just like, I hate seeing these Mars Saturn contacts. Like, even in just like mainstream astrology, everyone's like, what's the worst aspect? Mars and hard aspect to Saturn. It sucks.
Yeah,
it just feels bad.
Yeah, and it can feel very restricting and very limiting and very stressful. Yeah. Just in general.
Like it. Yeah, you're really going to have to be flexible on this day. Don't go in with any expectations.
Yeah.
And I do think that this is going to hold for a little bit because it's at that first degree.
100%.
So like this could be kind of, you're going to feel it the day before, you're going to feel it for a few days after.
Well, and I think we start maybe collectively or energetically being aware that Mars is now within, forming this finger of God. So we're deeply in this informational area where like Mars becomes a very important planet.
Definitely becoming aware of like what Mars needs to do, but still no clarity on how to do it. I mean, the nice thing about yods versus just a quincunx is that there's like the output has to do with what Mars is trying to do. Like there is it's able to do this work because it's so flexible on both ends, on either side of the quincunx, So I would be really interested to see how that works. The rest of the day is pretty chill. I think that aspect, like we said, holds. Yeah, it's enough. You don't need more aspects than that. There's a moon quintile to retrograde Pluto, so maybe that could give us some a chance to
some psychological depth
to maybe process what's going on with that Mars Saturn quincunx. And then we have moon sesqui square to Mars, a little bit of frustration, but it's pretty minor. And then moon quintile to Sun in Gemini, but the Sun is anaretic. So it's like, it would be nice, but I just think that with that Mars quincunx, it's not gonna I feel like it's going to get overshadowed by that.
And I'm wondering with that moon, quintile, sun, and Gemini, if it has to do with some sort of like information. It's the last bit of information we need to get us, into Cancer season, which will have to do with homeland and mothering and home and everything having to do with the America, because we are a Cancer.
Yeah. I do think that the quintiles today are just going to be like delivery of information. I think that actually makes sense. And then it's going to end with a sun semi-sextile to Uranus and Taurus, which is nice. There's some budding ideas around here about.
I think it highlights what Uranus and Taurus ultimately really was about.
Yeah.
And I also think that because sun is in Gemini, it's in the sign that Uranus is about to go into. So there could be something about like the information around what ultimately Uranus and Gemini has been planted for us, like is told to us. So, and it's also Uranus is in its farewell tour with a Taurus right now. It's like parting shots. What's up?
Yeah. It's one of the things I love about the 29th degree. It really does feel like someone woke up and realized they only have a few minutes left, and they're just like, pow, 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 pow.
Oh shit, I have to get this done. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder if we're going to get some more like tectonic action.
I think we will.
With Uranus and Taurus being at this last degree. So for this whole week, if we're going to get some more earth news, some more earth shakies. Yeah, I mean, hopefully not any major ones, that they're just like letting off the pressure. What's going to Friday, June 20th?
Woo woo.
Venus, and it's Venus's day. Venus is in Taurus, and she is on the world point, which is 15 degrees of the fixed signs. Venus has some news for us that pertains to all of us worldwide. So, Venusian things. Immediately, I go money, honey.
Money, honey.
Value, relationships. But it's more Taurus. Libra is more about relationships.
Yeah.
Taurus is more about money and security. Yeah. So there's something about security here and like how we're trying to get it or maintain it, and just literally our financial system that could potentially be here. And we know that we just had that financial square between Jupiter and Saturn. That is an economic square. So Venus has some news for us today.
And anytime we have like a lot of Mars stuff going on and Venus comes in, I love to highlight the role that Venus plays in ideas of like war and conquest. Yeah. Or like, a war of passion, or like what will we passionately fight for, right? And like you said, we're definitely, this may be speaking more to the Taurus side of Venus, where it's about our money and our resources. So yeah, I do think that there's going to be this like impassioned, like I need this, like I have to fight for this to keep myself alive, right? To keep to have the things that I need to feel good. So yeah, I do think that money, and I think it's just going to be very impassioned. It's going to be like people taking sides and like making clear what it is that they value and what they want.
Yeah. 3:31 a.m. we get Moon square Mercury in Cancer. So this is some sort of like, either emotional, psychological kind of conflict. Yeah. Kind of an emotional outpouring with your words.
Yeah. It could definitely just be a meltdown. You can just have a melt. It's Cancer.
And Moon in Aries.
Yeah. It's going to be a fucking meltdown.
It's cranky. It's a cranky aspect. We have Moon conjunct Chiron after that. So it's very aware of the ways that it feels sensitive. It's very sensitive and sensitive about its own ego, its own identity, very hyper aware of what that is. We get a semi-sextile to Uranus. I'm interested to see like what could be. It's still about resourcing because Uranus is in Taurus. Moon sextile the sun at the very last degree before we have some ingresses.
And there's going to be a couple.
Yeah.
Like at the same time.
Yeah.
So
it's a disseminating.
So this will actually, so this will probably be an interesting sextile to pay attention to. Obviously, like Moon Sun sextiles are super, super common. But when you have them at this last critical degree, and then you have both the sun and the moon moving into a different place, I really feel like these two have come together to be like, we have something to tell you. Pay attention. And that's going to be at 6:49 p.m. So that's going to be like toward the end of the day on Friday.
It's informational, certainly.
Definitely informational. And I think it's just, sorry, that beeping is distracting me. It's
the clown car that goes by every day.
It's like, wah, 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 wah,
every day.
It goes by every day.
Yeah, multiple times.
What is it?
With a clown horn.
Is it actually a clown car?
Kind of. Yeah, and they have snacks. Yeah,
it's like an ice cream
truck. Yeah, but it's not ice cream.
So what kind of snacks?
All sorts of snacks. Pork rinds, sodas.
I don't like pork rinds.
Well, I don't think that truck is for you.
Well, do they have things other than pork rinds?
Yeah.
Like what?
Chips.
Not helping.
Horchata.
Okay, I like horchata. I like chips. Why is the first thing you said pork rinds?
Because I see them on the back of the truck.
Do you like pork rinds?
No.
Okay.
No.
So maybe that's just not the food truck for us, I guess. Anyway, so moon sextile sun. There's some important information.
Confirmation. Not confirmation, conversation
that
is happening that has to do with like identity and information and trying to wrap something up. Again, this has to do with the moon sun cycle, right? So we had our quarter square, the realization. Now the moon is coming into sextile of the sun. It's like, hey, okay, we know what we have to do. Like, let's like, it's a working aspect. Let's do it. Like, let's finish this up. Let's wrap it up. Moon enters Taurus. Now it's cozy. Moon entering Taurus. This little area here, I love, because the moon enters Taurus, which is ruled by that Venus, which is also in Taurus.
And both moon and Venus just love being in Taurus.
They love it.
And moon in Taurus is one of my favorite placements. Yeah,
it's just, I think that's really nice. We're going to get the little bit of a vibe shift. I think we're going to kind of cool down, smooth out. The sun is going to enter Cancer.
So fucking cozy.
Which will be ruled by that moon in Taurus.
So fucking cozy.
So yeah, we get to a place of like also security minded. Everything has to do with security in this moment because we're having to deal with Cancer and Taurus placements.
Yes.
Which is everything is about how soft is it? How comfortable am I? Like, how safe am I?
How safe am I? I think that's the biggest thing.
Safety
and security.
All about Taurus and Cancer things. At 8:14 p.m. Oh, actually 7:42 p.m. with the sun entering Cancer. This is, I think, when we talked about homeland stuff.
Yep.
I think we're now entering a month where this is going to be high priority for at least Americans. And also other countries, like they're all dealing with their own sense of patriotism and, their homeland security.
Yeah.
It's just
who we give our loyalty to.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Everybody becomes far more security minded though.
And if this is like, to bring it to a more micro level, like I think, and it's like Jupiter's in Cancer right now too. Like this is, this moment in particular, pay attention to what Taurus and Cancer are doing in your chart. Pay attention to like your home life, your sense of security.
Yeah, literally that Cancer area of your chart is being lit up like a goddamn Christmas tree.
Like a Christmas tree. And it's actually in my 4th house of home.
I love that.
And security. So that'll be fun for me.
Well, and Mercury is animals.
Yeah.
Little animals.
Yeah.
You just got a cat.
I got a cat yesterday.
Just a little cat entering.
Just a little animal familiar coming into my life.
Home.
He's a big fat boy too. Big fat chonky man.
Chonk.
He's a chonk.
He's
close to 20 pounds.
The sun, think about it, it illuminates a part of the chart where it is. It highlights, it goes light on, click, this place is the place, right? And Jupiter goes, this is where we're expanding into. This is where we're going to open up all of these doors and new opportunities for you to learn about this part of life, right? Mercury is like, well, we're going to be thinking about it, processing about it, talking about it, having conversations about it.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of opportunity, and also with the sextile from Mars and the sextile from Venus and the moon to really, oh, that's a little minor talent trine, like by sign. Mm-hmm. That's cute. So there's a lot of conversations that are readily available to be had. Mm-hmm. And probably feel relatively pleasant, even though we live in the world that we live in.
I do think Friday is going to be nice, though.
It could be.
Like, I think not the most gentle day.
No, I think with the 8:14 p.m. Mars quincunx Neptune, I think we're going to want to like escape. But like that makes sense. Everything's in Cancer or Taurus.
Yeah, I still kind of argue even with that Mars quincunx. I think that kind of reinforces like you're just going to want to escape. You're not going to want to get any. You're not even going to be able to get anything done.
You just want to drop out.
Yeah. Get stoned. Yeah. Yeah, go find somewhere pretty to sit and like pretend everything. Mars quincunx Neptune, pretend everything's fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's also just a confusion around what you're trying to get done. And so it just becomes discombobulating. Yeah. I don't know which way to go to get the things I get. And
Mars and Virgo, so much ruminating, right? Yeah. So maybe just don't. Yeah. Just don't today. Mm-hmm. Just focus on Venusian things. Take care of yourself. Maybe like have a nice time with a cutie.
Yeah, we do get the moon in Taurus trine Mars and Virgo. That's a nice working aspect, but it's not until the evening. I mean, it's late night. That is, I feel like this is, you stay at home with a glass of wine. Yes. You know, and a book.
And you bitch.
Yeah.
I feel like Mars and Virgo is bitchy. Let's be honest. Mars and Virgo is like, because it's that critical kind of nature and you just get driven. Yeah. So I do think that it could be a little bit of like sitting with your wine and just being like, everybody's a fucking idiot but me. Moon and Taurus with Mars and Virgo, tell me that it's not you sitting there being like, everyone is an idiot. I mean, except for me.
I'm a Virgo rising, so I get it. Yeah. I understand Virgo energy. I love a Virgo. 11:10 p.m. Moon sextile Jupiter in Cancer. This is a feel-good aspect. This is one of the, Moon, Jupiter, soft contacts, like the sextile and the trine. You just really are trying to indulge in the things that you're indulging in. And this could, with the Moon in Taurus, Jupiter in Cancer, this could be drink.
Yeah.
This could be food. This is really just like dipping the bread into the cheese and brie. And
Venus on the world point. You can just imagine like goddess Venus like lounging on a lounge similar to this.
Yeah.
Grapes getting dropped into her mouth.
It feels like Bacchus mode.
Yeah.
Like, let's party, baby, but like in a really sexy, seductive, like chill kind of way.
Definitely.
So that's a nice closing moment for the day. And hopefully, hopefully whatever comes to pass in terms of like the Venusian topics, I do really think that has to do with the Jupiter-Saturn square. I think we get to have some awareness about what ultimately happened to our money.
Yeah.
For all of those tariffs, all of the weird shit that went down.
Yeah.
Okay. So Saturday, June 21st. Here we go.
Yep.
Mercury's on the world point. He's in the 22 cardinal area. And this is when we get kind of the big clicking in of the fingers of God, which I think are really interesting. So we have Mars at the apex and retrograde Pluto, sextile Saturn and Neptune at the base. So this has to do with like structural dreams and like foundations and also like the people. And Mars wants to take action and how to do those things.
Yep.
And I think it really does become about like service and industry. I wonder if it has to do with like working class stuff again.
Yep.
I continue to think about that, especially when we have to deal with like Saturn and Pluto stuff. But Mercury has something critical about it. It's because it's been on the world point, right? Wasn't it at one point? No, it wasn't yet. Oh, it's not until it hits 4.
Yeah.
He's close though. We also have a finger of God with Pluto at the apex. So this has to do with like revolution, people, revolution.
Yeah.
So it's like something to do, like literally Mars things, doing things, getting things done, moving forward in whatever way. And then also we have Pluto, which is literally about revolution.
Right.
Altogether.
And if you're talking about modern astrology, we're talking about Pluto being the was it the higher
octave
of Mars.
Love that. Yeah.
So so yeah, it almost feels like, because we were talking about at the beginning, Mars is a little bit more tangible energy because it's a closer planet to us, so we can see when Mars is doing things. Pluto is further away; it's a more generational planet. So when we're talking about Pluto doing the same thing that Mars is doing, I think it gives some like intense juice to what Mars is doing right now. And it's kind of saying like, okay, like this isn't just something that's happening in this moment. Whatever happens in this moment is going to have far reaching implications. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Service, sacrifice.
And yeah, I think I like what you said about it being about the people. I think Mars and Virgo is so much about the people.
100%.
Than the working class, right?
Definitely working class. Blue collar.
Yeah, blue collar, Mars and Virgo, for sure.
Mars and Virgo is a person who works with their hands, right? Yes. Because Virgo is
it's a smith of some kind.
Yeah, some sort of smith. It could be a metal smith, a jewelry maker, you know, someone who cuts hair, someone who does like fine arts.
Construction.
100%.
Masonry. Yeah.
So the everyday worker.
Even nannying, housekeeping, all of those things.
Definitely
for
housekeeping.
Sure. Yeah. And then I think that's also going to play into what's going on with so much of our blue collar, especially now, so much of our blue collar working class is immigrants and undocumented.
Yeah. And if we remember too, I think Trump just rolled back his like call for ICE to go and sweep up all of the workers. I mean, he's still.
That's because
because
the bottom line got affected.
But I think it's because money, right? Venus, money was affected by all of these like super riches, right? Or like, hey, you're affecting our business now. Because we need those undocumented workers to make us money, and now you've done too much. And so there could be something here about that coming to light. Other things that happen this day, we do get a moon square Pluto. That's always a psychological intensity. Mercury in Cancer trine the North Node in Pisces. So something about Mercury also being on a world point is facilitating some sort of piece of information. Mercury in Cancer, this can be information about mothering, homeland, security, is facilitating that North Node in Pisces, which is about sacrifice, which is about release, which is about compassion, which is about forgiveness, connection, ultimate connection.
And ending of cycles, death, those kinds of things.
So, and there's an ability to release too, because the sextile to the South Node means it has the ability to release this old stuff, the old pieces of information that it was maybe holding on to as some sort of security blanket. And now we have this new piece of information that helps us to do that North Node in Pisces thing.
And because it's the North Node, I do think it needs to be said that it is a necessary purging or releasing. I think releasing is a better way to put it in this case with the trine. It's a necessary release. I don't think it's a release that you can necessarily escape, right? It's just something's going to happen. North Node's always a little destabilizing, and something's going to get thrown out. And I think, it's going to be interesting with Mercury right on the world point in that moment, right?
We get Moon is going to make some aspects semi-square to the sun. I'm going to skip over that one. Moon conjunct Venus in Taurus. So where we had Venus on the world point, I think more information comes through because the moon is translating light. So it comes and goes like, hey, remember what we talked about yesterday?
Exactly.
I mean, and also
that's exactly how Taurus would say it too.
Remember what we talked about?
Do you remember?
It was about money. And moon,
low-key, it's really important.
Moon Venus is a lovely aspect,
especially in Taurus.
Really likes to indulge. It needs to. It feels safer when it has all of its worldly pleasures around it.
It's going to be 10 p.m., so it could be sexy.
It could be.
It could Taurus, be. Very sensory.
Yeah, it's not bad. And then there's something forming around security things and foundations and dreams, and that's in the evening. They're almost negligible, But that Venus semi-square Saturn, I think, again, has to do with money and economics.
Mm-hmm.
Because that Jupiter-Saturn square is still there. It's separating. Yeah. Jupiter is now free. However.
Yeah. I think the semi-square is going to be a little bit of like anxiety around money.
Mm-hmm.
Just not feeling, just ruminating about it.
Or like seeing the limit and being like, oh, but I can't do that yet.
Yeah.
You know, like, or oh, I have to spend my money there. Oh shit.
Yeah, exactly. Or like realizing that you should have spent your money on something else and being like, but I already spent my money on this. I'm fucked, right? I mean, you're probably not as fucked as you think because it's a semi-square. It's a little guy.
Yeah,
but
it's part of a whole cycle that will and has been, just started when we had that Venus-Saturn conjunction. I should have written down when that was, but now we have some information. I think that what the semi-square brings is a piece of information, a hint as to really what this cycle is going to hold for us for this whole Venus-Saturn cycle. Okay.
Sunday, June 22nd.
It's the sun's day.
It's
Sun is in Cancer.
It's the sun's day. We're starting off with minor aspect at 12:10 a.m. It's just a moon semi-square to Jupiter, and at 3:31 a.m. I think is where we should start.
Okay.
Is Mars making a sextile to Jupiter in Cancer.
It's a really good working aspect.
I was going to say, this is productive. This is nice. What's nice about it, because obviously Jupiter can be a little expansive to the point of being overblown, which is why I kind of prefer, sometimes I'm like, sextiles are boring. But with Jupiter, I think a sextile is a nice balance of being able to use the expansive energy of Jupiter without being totally overblown or being overly confident.
I think you should clean your house on this day.
Yeah, Mars and Virgo with Jupiter and Cancer, definitely. Yeah,
clean your house.
Decorate a little bit. Yeah, do the things that make your house cozy.
Yeah.
And then at 7:52 a.m. So this is going to be like just as you're getting ready to go to work, or maybe you'll just be out. You'll have just started your day at work. It's going to be Moon in Taurus trining the South Node in Virgo, which is definitely going to be revisiting some things.
I think it's something we know that we need to let go of, and we're actually able to do it emotionally. We're able to
and this is 2 earth signs, right? So it's going to be like tangible,
practical.
Yeah, something practical. So it very well could be like, I love when Taurus and Virgo get together, because it's very much the energy of like, yeah, this is nice, but we don't need it.
Yeah,
we can add that to the yard sale and make some money.
Well, and especially because the moon is, hi BB, the moon is conjuncting Uranus during this facilitation. It's like, yeah, I can change that habit. Yeah, I have this insight into, and I'm able to do it. And that's comfortable for me. I'm willing to let go of this thing that I thought was either limiting or impacting my sense of security. I'm able to literally change the habit.
Yeah. It's like finding that thing, like that t-shirt that you just kept for years because you loved it and you were like, I could never get rid of this t-shirt. And finally today you pull out this t-shirt and it's full of holes and it's got like pit stains and shit. And you're like, I'm realizing this isn't as special to me as it used to be. And I think I'm finally ready to let it go.
I'm into it.
Yeah. And then we have at 10:44 a.m. Moon will sextile Mercury in Cancer.
Also good working aspect.
I'm feeling a lot of like cozy home vibes.
Yeah, hi, baby.
Hi, sweet man.
You want to come sit?
Says yes. Yeah. A lot of like cozy working at home vibes. We'd love that for a Sunday. Until we get to midday. And then we have a little bit of a damper on our day, which is 11:35. We're going to have Sun and Cancer squaring off in a cardinal square with Saturn and Aries. And we've already had Cancer and Aries squaring off together a few times this week.
Take action.
Yeah. It can be a little, anytime it's with Cancer and Aries together, I also feel a little bit like it's
emotional.
It's emotional.
It's angry
and like
dictator
vibes, where it's like,
hey,
you know, where it's, or like being a little bit like tyrannical in your emotions, you know, just being like, no, this is how I feel, you know.
That's real.
Yeah. So, but it's a square, you know, it's a Saturn square, so it's going to be a damper.
Yeah, I also think that there's like the inability to be fully who you are.
Interesting.
Right?
Like, yeah, I like that.
The sun square Saturn, if we think about the United States being a Cancer.
Like, ooh, like you almost have to like sacrifice your sense of self in order to feel safe.
Or you like some sort of limit or responsibility is placed upon you that doesn't allow you to be fully expressed.
Yeah.
Right? Like it kind of like, to me, it feels like if you had natally like Saturn on the ascendant. Yeah. Pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. External pressure.
Yeah. Or some sort of responsibility is placed upon you that you have to do before you can actually fully be who you are.
Right. Right.
It's also kind of a maturity checkpoint too.
Yeah. And I think that, well, and that's all connected, right? Is I think that there is, when we think about maturing, we think, you know, it's easy to think about it in terms of like, oh, you're just this like carefree, like ridiculous kid. And then you suddenly have to take responsibility for things. But I do think another side of that coin can be, you know, you think that you're mature because you are trying to meet the responsibilities of the expectation, or you're trying to meet the expectations of those around you. Yeah. And I think a maturity point is kind of having to come to terms with like, oh, but when I do that, I'm not actually growing.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not actually growing into the person I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. And Jupiter's combust. The sun is translating between that Saturn-Jupiter square. And so I think it's going to show us something. It's going to literally spotlight what this square is. I think that there was some sort of awareness. I think we all knew, you know, when those terrorists were happening, shit was going down.
Yep.
What is that really? How is it going to show up for us? It is very possible that on this day, and also into the next day, because it would have to hit that 2 degrees, that we're like, oh, that's what it is. Cool.
Yep.
And you know, when Jupiter is exalted, so it does a little bit better inside of this combustion phase, but he's not as powerful,
right,
as he typically is, because he's with the sun right now.
Yeah, so he's definitely being a little kind of like washed out by the sun.
He's a little burnt up.
Yep.
He's a little sunburned.
A little crispy.
He's a little sunburned.
A little shriveled up little turd right now.
But I mean, it's, you know, Sun Saturn square can also just feel a bit depressing.
Yeah. Yeah, just feeling like you just can't really fully be yourself that day.
Energy issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just feeling like you can't show up.
Watch out for the camera, Bethany.
It's easy to think of it. Betty, can you back up? Back up. Make a choice. Can you come?
Yeah, with your dainty
come here,
feet.
Baby. Yeah, there you go.
Good job.
Big dumb baby. You just can't show up for one reason or another. You're either sick, or your self-esteem is feeling crappy that day, or you're just tired.
Just don't get to shine in the way that you want to.
No, it'll pass.
You have too much responsibilities placed upon you.
It's a sun transit, so it will only be a couple days.
Yeah.
And then we have some minor stuff going on around midday.
We got Moon conjunct Uranus and Taurus.
Yeah, and then at 6:50 p.m., Moon conjunct Uranus and Taurus.
Yeah. I think that's an emotional vibe shift. It's some sort of surprise.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Shaking things up. Moon and Taurus wants to feel secure and safe at all times. No matter what, it's frog in the well. You know, I'm good here.
Yep.
Nothing needs to change. And Uranus is like, well, actually something needs to change for you to be a little bit more free.
Yeah.
So that
but you're going to like it. It's going to be a little uncomfortable at first, and then you're really going to like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7:57 p.m. the moon enters Silly Clown.
Gemini.
Yeah.
Yep.
Becomes more data and energy informationally driven. It is not so much about security. It is far more about information and data.
Curiosity.
Being very curious. It came out of the well. And it's like, hey, what's going on around here?
Yeah. like, I don't want to just be a frog.
Yeah. We have Mars quincunx retrograde Pluto at 9:59 p.m. And I think this aspect will have potentially allowed this day to feel frustrating in terms of the sorts of things that we can get done.
Yeah. And this is Mars quincunxing Pluto. So keep in mind, you're gonna feel this whole day.
It's in a Scorpio shape too, because of the
we love Pluto hanging out with a Scorpio shape.
Yeah, because like if it were on the other side, if these two signs were switched, it would be a Virgo shape.
Yeah,
for the quincunx, but no, it's a Scorpio, so it's psychological. It's like, I don't know exactly what I need to get done, and I'm feeling really fucked up about it, and I'm gonna just keep digging and processing.
And I think with Virgo, Mars and Virgo, when it's like, I feel like I have a lot to get done, but I don't know what I need to get done, that's like shadow trauma side of Virgo, where it's like there's just too many possibilities. And if I actually narrow it down to the actual reason why I can't focus on this, then I'm going to have to actually confront some of my wounds here. And that makes me very uncomfortable, right? Quincunx to Pluto.
And this all has to do with desire too, because Mars is a planet of desire, and so is Pluto. It's like your deepest soul's like desire. So it's like, tangible desire versus
So what do we desire in our work? What do we desire for our health and routines? And why are we having such a hard time meeting those wants?
And how do we show up in society?
Yeah. So that's definitely something that we're going to be, because Pluto and Aquarius, how do we show up in society? How does our lack of, or in what ways have we been lacking in addressing our base needs around routine and health and work that is impacting our ability to show up in society? I think there's a lot of that going on.
What kind of work can we take up that allows us to be a better part of society or a better part of community? How can I change community with the sorts of service or the way I show up or the sort of work I do? Is the work I do useful?
Yeah. And I was going to say, with the quincunx, there's something uncomfortable around, like, I feel like I'm doing work, but is it actually paying off? Right? Or is it making a difference? Or am I just keeping myself busy?
Yeah.
Right?
Fun.
Or like, what work do I realize I have to do?
Yeah.
Even if I don't want to. So that's all going on with the Mars quincunx.
And 10:33 p.m. moon sextile Saturn.
So, I mean, at least it's a sextile. At least it's like, okay, I get it.
I think it's feeling a bit put out. Like maybe it wants to have whatever conversations, or it wants to connect, but it's feeling a little.
It's moon in Gemini.
Yeah,
I forgot that. Yeah, it just moved into.
And so it's feeling a little like left out or isolated. And because we have that Sun square Saturn, I'm just thinking that like today, Sunday isn't like you have the potential to get stuff done, but do you quite feel good about it? And do you know if it's the right sort of work you should have been doing?
It feels very like autopilot. Like it's like, okay, I'm just going to do this and just kind of see what happens, because I'm not really sure this is doing anything,
Yeah.
It's like trying to mop up paint.
It can also, Moon Saturn contacts that are in positive contacts kind of brings a stability to the feeling. So where a moon in Gemini is like, give me every fucking piece of data I've ever. Now it kind of goes, well, okay, there's a limit here.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to focus my information data gathering over here in this one area of life instead of everything. It like narrows the scope.
My mercurial sibling is in Mars right now and is kind of setting the boundaries for me, right? Virgo is kind of being, because Virgo is the one who also is a Mercury sign, but it takes the information as like, I want to organize and categorize this information so that I can make sense of it. Whereas Gemini is the guy who just keeps on running in and being like, hey, Virgo, here's more information, right? And finally, Virgo was like, stop. Like, we have to stop and we have to organize this, right?
There is still something somewhat emotional about it, if only, or an emotional flair to the sorts of information it needs. It needs something that maybe is a little bit more intuitive or psychological because the Mercury is in Cancer.
Right.
And so then they're just in a loop. Moon in Gemini, Mercury in Cancer. They're just like, yeah, 100%.
Yep. And they'll be stuck there for a minute.
Yeah, just for a little minute. But
yeah, I do think it's important, a moon sextile to Saturn, especially if you're like a heavily Saturnian person or something. I think these aspects can feel a little better. Like you want that security and stability.
Yeah.
Right?
It's too bad Saturn's in a terrible sign for it. But
well, we got to suck it up because that's where it's going to be the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And then the day's kind of ending and we got a moon semi-sextile to the sun. And then at 11:25 p.m., we have moon sextiling Neptune.
It just wants to float away.
I was going to say, it just had that sextile to Saturn. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take a gummy and go to bed.
Yeah.
Because I'm done with this.
Yeah, it just wants to dream. It wants to, it's almost like it wants to make its, like, I don't know, write its stories about like being some sort of pioneer and new thought leader. It's kind of like,
yeah, I agree.
Really dreamy. And also there is kind of it's a psychological intuitiveness. It's not like super emotional, maybe. It could be playful.
It's a little heavy.
I don't hate it, but
it's just so late in the day. I think it's just going to be like smoking weed before bed or something to relax.
Fair.
Yeah.
I got it.
Unless you're going out, but
I mean, you could.
I wouldn't want to go out during a moon sextile Neptune.
No.
It sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to moon. Well, it is the moon's day, Monday.
June 23rd.
June 23rd. And for the moon's day, we are starting off with, actually the moon is spicy this morning.
I think, Monday.
Like super spicy.
She's active.
Yeah. Do you want to start at 1:17 a.m.?
Yeah. Moon trine retrograde Pluto. So I have this aspect.
Yeah. So tell me, how's that feel?
You think a fucking lot. Like all the time. And when you are having feelings, Pluto definitely goes like, but how does that feel in your body? And you're like, ew, gross.
Yeah. Especially for a moon in Gemini. It's like,
it's very psychological. It's very easy to like get really like wrapped up in your own cycle of thinking, but it does let you get to the bottom of things emotionally, where you're like, because Pluto's
it's kind of like spiraling down to that point, right?
It's definitely like a spiral. It's not a straight drop.
Do you remember being a kid and going to the mall? Did you ever see those big things where you could drop a quarter in and it would like go like that? But you never, it would always take so much longer than you thought it would. And then it would just be like,
I love those.
And then it would get closer and be like,
that is kind of what it feels, because Moon in Gemini doesn't necessarily feel the feeling. It's like it says words around the feeling, right? I feel angry. Then you have to go, what does angry feel like?
Yeah.
My body feels hot. Okay. Why?
Yeah.
And then you keep asking why.
Yeah. Where does it come from? Why? Why am I angry? Why does it make me hot?
Yeah. And then you finally get into the bottom. You're like, oh, it's my daddy issues.
Yeah. And that's the quarter going.
Yeah. But it's at the very end of it. But then once you are able to kind of figure out what that is, you're able to let it go.
Yeah.
But you have to do all of the work.
Yeah. I was going to say, that sounds great and like productive and also fucking exhausting.
It is.
It sounds really like a really, really tiring aspect to live with.
It is.
It
is. It really is.
So this is, and the thing is like we're starting the day with that energy, right? Like 1:17 a.m. So you'll probably be sleeping, or maybe you won't be able to sleep.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you'll be having one of those nights where you just can't turn your brain off.
Yeah, because
I think that could definitely. Yeah, it's all air. So I think it could. Yeah.
We get the
especially with Pluto in Aquarius, it's going to be like all of my like personal stuff as a Gemini moon, and then it's like and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, but the big picture, you know?
Yeah. Moon square Mars in Virgo, 125 is right after. So think of it
more ruminating.
Moon trine Pluto and then moon square Mars.
Yeah.
So
a very mercurial moon square Mars. So it's just like, brain won't turn off.
Yeah.
Might not be able to sleep, or you'll have like just like really chaotic dreams, or your sleep cycle will be thrown off.
Yep.
All that stuff.
1:29 a.m. Sun square Neptune. I think God. Well, what I think is so interesting is like there's no aspects that happen until 11:04 a.m. after this. So I think it's almost like we wake up in this like dreamy confusion.
Yeah.
And
bleary-eyed.
Yeah. It's very confusing.
Yep.
And it's very maybe a bit sacrificial with the Neptune and Aries being ruled by the Mars in Virgo.
Like the sense of like you get up and realize that like you don't want to do what you know you have to do today, but you're going to do it anyway kind of vibe. Yeah. Especially like the Venus at 11:4.
Semi-square. Yeah. The Jupiter in Cancer.
Yeah.
I think there's just an unfocus here.
Yeah. Yeah. That bleary-eyed, like I just don't.
Like a hangover.
Yeah. Yeah, it is going to be like a hangover.
And with Venus.
God, I've just had so many mornings like that recently that I'm like, oh, God.
Like, no.
I don't need another one.
But moving on, we do have the moon, semi-square Mercury in Cancer. There's something that it wants to say, semi-square Chiron Aries. It's becoming aware of some sort of wounding that needs to be addressed, perhaps. But then we get these really lovely quintiles.
Yeah, those are cute. It's a moon quintile Saturn, which Saturn is always, stern. But it's like we were talking about with the day before with that moon sextile to Saturn, it can be like stabilizing. And I think it could be like
taking responsibility.
Yeah.
Like for one's own emotions. This is like after maybe throwing it off on other people, or it's like it's the external world that has, that's making me feel this way.
Or now you've just been like bouncing around trying not to address this. You are finally like, yes, here is the space in which I can be accountable for this.
Yeah. And a talent of knowing where you end and begin with other people also.
I like that.
Yeah, moon quintile Neptune.
And I think that kind of reinforces what you just said.
Yeah.
Right? That moon quintile Neptune is like, creatively or having that talent to figure out like what the dream is and like where I end and other people begin. That feels like a very quintile Neptune. Are you looking at how cute she is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
she's so perfect.
So she just threw the ball for herself.
At 11:13 p.m., we get Jupiter quincunx retrograde Pluto. I think that this is an adjustment around laws, legalities, sudden sort of information or break having to do with those things and how it pertains to like the people. I think that it feels probably pretty critical, I would say. It's in a Virgo shape. So there's some sort of analysis or anxiety. Yeah. And Jupiter is still combust. We don't love that.
And Pluto's retrograde. So neither of them are like are in top form right now.
Yeah, not in top form. Let's see. I definitely think it has to do with some sort of maybe sudden law change.
Yeah.
Or that affects all of us.
Yeah. And I think it's important with Jupiter because Jupiter is definitely about like law. The other side of Jupiter is kind of like spirituality or and like
hope.
And hope. Yeah.
Literally hope.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be some discomfort in that conversation between
like some sort of like a break with our hope.
I don't know. Don't let it be that.
I don't know.
Jupiter's in Cancer still.
Jupiter is in Cancer,
so
but he's combust. He's still within 3 degrees of squaring Saturn. This could be
the
economic.
pessimist versus I just touched your boob. Sorry. The pessimist versus the optimist here. I'm always like, it might not be that bad, and you're like, it's that bad. I mean, I was saying more like it's going to, because of the quincunx, you know, these, just thinking about the relationship between like law and order and like our spiritual and moral and ethical selves. Like the
maybe there's an adjustment of the dream.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking. Like with the quincunx, more like I don't feel like the quincunx would speak to like a total loss of hope, right? But I do think it would be like really asking. We would really need to ask ourselves.
Something needs to change.
There's some moral ambiguity that we need to get clear on, right? Like that's what it feels like, you know. And that like what laws are coming into play. Are going to like force us to clarify that.
And this is also when that yod is with Pluto at the apex is pretty strong. So, you know, really wanting to take some sort of action. We have Jupiter sextile Mars still, that's, I mean, within a degree.
Yep.
So, you know, wanting to take some sort of action around our goals and our hopes and our dreams. You know, doing that sort of work. Pluto at the apex has to do with revolution. It has to do with elimination. It has to do with obsession. It has to do with like deep structures.
Yeah.
Like below the earth, like like oil and mining and
fracking and drilling and all that good stuff.
But at the apex is Pluto, power to the people. So, you know, it could be whatever way that we adjust our dream or some sort of law or piece of information is given to us and adjusted for us that like ultimately it will serve that Pluto and Aquarius thing, which is literally changing the foundations of like our society.
Yeah. Yeah. I really see this quincunx as more of a push and pull between like the people who are in charge of writing our laws and the power of the people who are most impacted by those laws, right? And what's the tension there right now? So
fun. Yeah. Okay, well, that is the end of our week.
Yep. I would say the week starts out sweet and then it's a little intense. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff around work this week, the work that you do.
Yeah.
The responsibilities and just who you're beholden to. I think there's a lot about that.
I think there's a lot of money in economic news.
Yep.
And certainly things around workers' rights, perhaps. And, you know, we still are at the end of some cycles and the beginning of some cycles, so nothing feels clear, defined, or chill. And I think we have to remember that, like, from a big picture. We just had Jupiter enter a new sign. We just had Saturn and Aries enter a new sign. Uranus is finishing up. Mars just entered. So we're just in this like adjustment phase that has nothing to do with us feeling like safe or stable or secure right now.
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay,
we'll end this.
She's saying, I want to go for a walk.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Happy Juneteenth. Bye.
Happy Juneteenth. Thanks, Betty.
She's fully stuck her tongue down my throat.
We're done.
I know. She was like, I know you're done.
She's like, yeah. You should wrap it up. You should wrap it up. You need your attention now.